Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman, live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the ongoing Israeli atrocities in Gaza. Today, before I introduce you to my guest, we'll just quickly go through those four major important areas that would be the major focus of our discussion today. The United Nations General Assembly will meet on May 20th in New York exclusively to discuss Israel's ongoing offensive on the Gaza Strip. The Assembly's president for the 75th session, Volkan Bozkır, announced this. Pakistan has joined hands with Palestine, Sudan and Turkey to address an emergency session on Palestine called by the United Nations General Assembly. Pakistan stands firmly with the people of Palestine, stated by the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmoud Qureshi. Furthermore, Israel fighter jets continued to pummel the Gaza Strip, flattening residential buildings and killing at least 4 Palestinians, including a journalist. At least 219 Palestinians, including 63 children, have been killed in Gaza since the latest violence flared on May the 10th. About 1,500 Palestinians have been seriously wounded. And now talking about the IDPs, or the people who were displaced, the number stands at 58,000 Palestinians have been displaced by the Israeli airstrikes that have destroyed or badly damaged nearly 450 buildings. Now the actual number is 550 plus in the Gaza Strip. About 47,000 of the displaced people have sought shelter in 58 United Nations run schools in Gaza. So you can well imagine the magnitude of the problem. Now, talking about the journalist, he was a radio broadcaster. He was killed in a strike. He was a young man. But this is the story. This is what the reality is. Forget about the people. Forget about the kids, the kind of life they're having at the moment. Mercy on them. Mercy is the only word which I have at the moment. But as far as the reality is concerned, God knows what's going on, because the media is pretty much under a blackout. This is what it is. Now, to talk about this, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us Adnan Qaiser Saab. Adnan Saab is an expert on foreign affairs, research associate, Conference of Defense Institute, Canada. Thank you so much, Adnan Qaiser Saab, for your presence, sir. And we also have with us from London, Dr. Shahid Qureshi Saab. He's a senior analyst of the London Post. Dr. Shahid Qureshi is a senior analyst with BBC and chief editor of the London Post. He writes on security, terrorism and foreign policy. Dr. Saab, what a pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you so much. And we also have with us Dr. Jamil Khan Saab, former ambassador, senior diplomat, and an expert on IR. Ambassador Saab, pleasure to have you too, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Let me put the first question to you, Adnan Qaiser Saab. First of all, sir, the ongoing Israeli atrocities in Gaza now. It seems that the Israeli forces are totally geared up for the takeover of Gaza, sir. The military incursion would soon be there, sir, because the way they are assembling their assets, the tanks, the APCs, the kind of ammunition they have, it seems that this time they are having a different set of plan, I guess. Your take, sir.
First of all, thank you very much, Faisal, for inviting me at your program.
Our pleasure,
It's
sir.
always a privilege to be at your show. And Assalamu alaikum to all your viewers. So first of all, understand that these are very, very somber moments for every Muslim, and especially for every Pakistani, because our hearts and minds, they are in sync with the Palestinians and the atrocities which are being unleashed on them. We have been at this place earlier, several times in the past. This has happened. This is not the first time. So, but again, I always, earlier at one of the PTV programs, while discussing about Kashmir, I mentioned that, the world must understand that the Kashmir runs in our blood streams. So even if you carry out a dialysis of each and every Pakistani, you cannot take out Kashmir from our veins. The same thing is with the Palestinians. Because of the Al-Quds Al-Sharif, our hearts, they bleed with the Palestinians and the atrocities which have been unleashed. So this is what. So what Israel has been doing it in the past, one thing is clear, that this whatever actions it has been taking in the past and as well as now, they are against the international norms, they are against international law, and Pakistan has always maintained a very principled stance that it has condemned we are the only country in the world on whose passport it is written that visit to Israel or the state of Israel is not allowed. So that means that we have always stood for the solidarity with the Palestinians. This is one. So, but I'm glad from a different perspective, whatever is happening. Moeed Yusuf Saab, Dr. Moeed Yusuf, who I read today that he has been elevated as a national security advisor, well-deserving position. He had written a book about brokering peace in nuclear environment, in which he highlighted three elements which for the conflict resolution. And one of them was conflict escalation, not only conflict highlighting, although the conflict has been highlighted in the past as well, but now the conflict has been escalated to unprecedented heights. So that means now, we are moving towards conflict resolution. I will tell you why. There are a couple of things, if you allow me to mention. The first of all, this is not the world we have seen in the past. After the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war, there have been different power centers. The United States power has been diminished, and the world acknowledges that. There are the China and Russia are asserting. We saw Russia's role in Syria during the Syrian civil war. So, we saw the Chinese, they're participating, they engaged into a 25 years strategic agreement with Iran. So China is also playing a role in the Middle East. So the things are different. So now, as we see, Pakistan has taken a diplomatic stance and diplomatic proaction. It is leading, one of the leading countries along with Turkey to highlight this issue in the United Nations, as well as OIC, as well as around the world. So I am very, very hopeful that with this atrocities, they cannot finish the will and determination of the Palestinians. This is very important. India tried for the past 70 years in Kashmir, it could not. Now the Palestinians, the same thing, since 1949, when this Balfour Declaration, after the Balfour Declaration, when 1949 the State of Israel was created, the Muslims in the region, in the Middle East, they have not accepted the state. So what is the solution? Is the two-state solution, west of the Jordan River to the Mediterranean, is the Palestinian state, which is due. And now a lot of burden of responsibility lies on President Biden, because if you recall, it was President Obama who was the biggest proponent of the two-state solution. And now when President Biden has resurrected the JCPOA, the Iranian nuclear program, so now one of the issues, outstanding issues, was the two-state solution. And I think that it is incumbent upon President Biden to take over the threads.
Adnan, do you believe that kind of support Israelis had during the time when Trump was in power, is it the same support now? Because I was reading another story, and I've heard that around $850 million worth of weapons, new technology, the Israelis are purchasing. Perhaps it has already arrived to be used against the Palestinians. I mean, I fail to understand the country, the biggest champions of democracy, and not only the champions, I mean, they would make sure that every country should have democracy of their own kind, eventually resulting in the worst of all kind of scenarios in those countries. Now, the point is that, are they sleeping? They don't want to do it? Or is it the power of the Jews lobby out there, sir? What exactly is it?
Two things, if you recall the history, two things the West's or the imperial powers' foreign policy were dictated by two things. First was the oil, the free shipment of oil for their industrial development. That was their biggest concern. And the second concern was the spillover of the Russian communist ideology. They didn't want it to spill into the Middle East. So that's why, the European powers, the United Kingdom in particular, as well as United States, they played a very, very keen role and a proactive role in supporting the state of Israel to stop the onslaught of the Russians. But now the Russians are there. We saw it in the Syrian civil war. The Russians are there. Turkey has an assertive role, and now the things are different at this time. So now I see that the things are going to change. Things are moving in a different direction. You see the statement which has been given by the Chinese foreign minister in the United Nations Security Council. You know, he did not name the country, but he stopped short of condemning the United States for vetoing the resolution which was there. Now they are going to the General Assembly. So there is a refreshed or a renewed vigor among the different countries of the world who realize that this is an unjust situation, unjust stance which has been taken by and helpless. And understand this thing. It is very important for the world to understand that this resistance is legitimately accepted in the UN Charter. That everywhere we saw in the history, even unfortunate to mention about the Mukti Banis, but the Tamil Tigers in East Timor, in Bosnia, everywhere people took arms. You saw recently in Taliban's affair. You know, there was ethnic.
I mean, Americans, I mean, they're playing such a negative role. I mean, wherever they have their own interest, they would call them the rebels against any regime. For example, ISIS was created by them. They used to be called rebels at that time, the rebels against the Syrian regime. Then the Quds were supported against the Turkish as well as the Iraqi areas. You know, so, I mean, they're playing a very, very, I think, dodgy kind of a game.
But there is a realization, you know, American power has receded. Now America is cognizant about its position. We saw, the world has seen. And I always mentioned that, you know, the world is dictated by the United States, but the United States is not the whole world as such.
So
you
the
know,
kind of veto power they enjoy, and plus whoever is against, I mean, if they favor any country legitimately or illegitimately, I mean, they get the support. But sir, moving on now. So the point is, sir, that these rockets, few of the rockets versus the fourth largest and the most technically advanced military in the world, sir, who
Can
even
I
upgrade
respond
the
to
latest
your
weaponry of
comment?
the Americans also. Your take on that, sir?
Well, thank you very much. So give me a few minutes to highlight. While we are condemning, we are analyzing the international situation as such, or the response of international community. We must introspect the internal dichotomies of the Muslim world as well as what has been going on in the intra-Palestinian feuds. So before I come to this one, you see, I see it in a broader perspective. Whatever when you mentioned about Hamas, which is a rightful observation. You know, when this Natanz sabotage took place in Iranian nuclear facility on 12th of April. You know, if you recall, Iran had threatened or and vowed vengeance, revenge against Israel. It blamed Israel for the Natanz sabotage, and it had. Now understand, Hamas and Iran have very, very close ties with each other. So since Hamas won the elections in Palestine, in the Gaza territory, since 2005, you know, it has entrenched itself, and it is a popular movement. Now understand, as I earlier mentioned, that the resistance is a legitimate response by the oppressed. It is internationally recognized. So whatever these rocket attacks which they have been taking, it is their right. They are resisting it. So this connected with Natanz, and now I come to another problem is the intra Muslim feuds. You know, Saudi Arabia and Iranian problems, and then Saudi Arabia had a problem with Turkey as well due to Jamal Khashoggi's incident, and then Saudi Arabia had a problem with Qatar as well, and the war in Yemen as well. But now, you know, saner elements have prevailed, and now Saudi Arabia is redrawing its focus, and now it is. And I'm very happy to learn that today the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia has stated that, you know, they are moving towards a rapprochement towards Iran. So this is a good thing. And now Saudi Arabia has made ties with Turkey as well as in Lebanon as well. So now the things are moving. This is one. So this is this Middle East problem, the Muslim problem, has to be addressed. So Israel basically, make use of it, our internal dissensions and chasms. It exploits them. This is one. So now you see, when I see there are a lot of onus of responsibility falls on those countries like UAE who had done the Abraham Accords. So this is one. They must stress upon Israel to honor their pledges which they had made towards the Palestinian. Third is the intra-feuds. Hamas and Islamic Jihad are on one side, and Fatah are on other side, because on the West Bank. So now I think, with due respect, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of Palestine, his shelf life is over. He should retire. And now this is one of the problems in Palestine, the intra-Palestinian feuds. So this must come to an end. So all these issues, they are being exploited. And finally, allow me to say that the Israel's own political situation, in the past 2 years, it had 4 elections.
Yes. Even now, currently, they're facing the same. And perhaps the Modi's design, go after the Palestinians the way he would always bash Pakistan and win the election and get the majority, because currently he's stuck. Now, coming back, quick.
Yeah, just one sentence I wish to say that, first of all, the world is changing. I'm very hopeful this time because of one thing, as I mentioned, Dr. Moeed Yusuf has written that the conflict has been escalated. It has been so it has been intensified. This is one. Secondly, there is a new thinking in Israel as well. Either you want a Jewish state or you want democracy. In democracy, you need to accommodate other ethnic minorities as well.
There, yeah, whether they're Muslims or
lastly, in the Middle East as well, there is an Arab Spring 2.0, or the resurgence of the Arab Spring of 2011. It is ongoing. It has taken place in Iraq, in Lebanon, and it is spilling. And this is very hopeful sign that things would eventually change.
We can only hope and pray.
No, because we cannot. Nobody can stop the will and determination of the people.
At the end of the day, that matters the most, sir. But thank you very much, Adnan Saab. Ambassador Saab, was a pleasure having you. Shahid Saab, thank you so much for your time as well. And that's all we have for this. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.